We've seen everyone from politicians in the United States and internationally. We've seen the CFTC, the SEC, the OCC, a whole bunch of alphabet soup of organizations I didn't even know existed that are all weighing in with their opinions on various parts of the industry. What's your read on the regulatory situation and kind of the rule set, both in the US and internationally?
Firstly, the reason you hear from all those agencies is there's a fight going on to who's to regulate it, right? Is it a commodity? Is it a currency? Is it a security, right? So that's clear that they've got a shit fight going on. Gensler's flexing his muscles and being the loudest about it. Meanwhile, you get these snarky comments from the others like it's not all down to him. So that has to be decided. So basically what we have to do is decide how to do this. So Gensler's making his play. He's saying, well, everything's a security. Fine. If you want to define it that way, that's okay too. Security doesn't make it illegal or a terrible thing. I mean, Apple's a security, and so is the US Treasury. So that's okay. But what you're going to have to do is change what securities laws, what that means. Because if you are going to stop the pace of development and innovation, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot, and it will be arbitraged away by going to different jurisdictions. So the US is hampered by this ridiculous 1934 securities law and the Howey test. So people use that as the big thing. See, it's a security. It's like, yeah, but that doesn't mean it's criminal activity. It means how you issue something and who's allowed to buy it is somewhat restricted. Now, is that the right thing to do? Is this what the world should be doing? Should we be restricting young people with less savings from this new exciting technology or not? My view is we should not, much like we shouldn't stop them investing in startups. We should give them warnings. We should give them understanding, some education about what they're doing. But people need to be allowed to do this because they're allowed to go to Vegas. They're allowed to throw all of their pay and all of their life savings, and nobody gives a shit. Zero regulations. They can lend it to their uncle who steals it. No regulations. But heaven forbid if you buy something that's listed as a security, you know, the ridiculous laws around accredited investors. It's just morally wrong and it doesn't stand up. So I think this is the battle that's going to get fought. I think the battle is Gensler is laying out the hard case. Everything's security. We're going to stop prosecuting people and then we'll figure it out. And I think the industry is going to coalesce along with voters. We're going to coalesce around, yeah, but if you turn it into the securities industry that we grew up with, we're not going to accept it. And so there's going to be a fight. And that fight will lead to a grand compromise. And that grand compromise was exactly what happened to the internet regulation and phone regulations beforehand. It will come, but it won't be easy. So my guess is if we do have another bear market phase that comes in somewhere in 2022, I think it starts later, 2022, 2023, it's all going to be about the fight of regulation and that mixed signal that's going to keep people away from the space. And it's going to push innovation to countries where it's clearer, such as South Korea or Singapore. Classic negotiation skills are always start with a hard line because it gives you the upper hand. Because what you're trying to do is there's the middle line. You're trying to get it incrementally over the middle line further in your direction. And Gensler wants that. And our job is to get it somewhere across the other side. And the answer is going to be somewhere in the middle. Let's see who wins. And think about what happens if what I think is going to happen is this 2 trillion is maybe 10 trillion by, let's say, March of next year. What are you going to do then? What are you going to do with the NFTs? What are you going to do with these social tokens? What are you going to do with DeFi? You cannot go back, find a bunch of people, say you were naughty. Who's the voice of God here? Who knows what DeFi protocol is going to survive and which one isn't? What, some guy in the SEC goes, this is a good project and that's a bad No, the market makes that decision. That is the job of the market. You just have to warn people what risks they're taking. You know, people have to be allowed to take risk. Now you're seeing the younger generation taking more risk than was traditional for us. And the reason being is options, Robinhood, and they're like, fuck it, I've got my one chance, and they're taking more risk. That's good. There's nothing wrong with risk taking, just as long as people understand. Options are great because you can only lose what you put in. Now, if you put in your life savings, that's a pretty stupid thing. But you see it on Wall Street Bets that they kind of acknowledge that and they laugh about their losses. But what you're doing is mass educating all of these people about risk taking. And I think there are going to be larger risk takers than our generation the Gen Xers were, or the particularly the baby boomers that were much less risk takers.
The other piece of it too, I think, is they're going further and further out on the risk curve because they have to, right? There's only so many assets that they can buy that actually have a real rate of return. And so naturally, what do you do? Is if I can't buy bonds, well, there goes 40% of the traditional portfolio. So what do I do with that money? Do I put it in stocks? Well, some stocks are doing well, some aren't, and you just kind of continue to move out. And then they're digital natives, and so naturally, it makes sense that they end up in Bitcoin, in cryptocurrencies.
And they have an informational advantage. Yeah. So good on them, right? Because I'm the idiot who's trying to figure it out. But these guys have been born in that world.
Of course.
They don't have to figure anything out. It's just normal.